Let's share our screen. I got the wrong one up here. Hold on, put that back away. Here we go. Okay. So last week we spent our time talking about God's conversation with Cain after the offering was rejected and the Cain was rejected, and that's where we left it. And as we know, it doesn't seem to work. That conversation ends in Pasuk Zayin, Pasuk Chet. Vayomer Cain el Hevel Achiv. And Cain said, here we go. Can you see it? Vayomer Cain el Hevel Achiv. And Cain said to Hevel, his brother, Vayihi bihiyotam basadeh. And it was when they were in the field. Vayakam Cain el Hevel Achiv vayahargehu. And Cain arose against Hevel, his brother, and he murdered him. That's our verse. Let's translate it one more time. And Cain said to Hevel, his brother, and it was when they were in the field, and Cain arose against his brother Hevel and murdered him. So, what questions do we have about this verse?
Well, he's talking to his brother, so what is he saying?
Good. Vayomer, almost always in the Torah, you expect a lemor, right? Vayomer lemor, and he said to him, quote, saying, right? Here, there is no quote of the conversation that the two of them had. So the Torah leaves you to wonder, what was it that Cain said to Hevel? And the next thing you know, we're told, and it was when they were in the field. That means presumably this conversation happens where?
There, in the field.
Well, the conversation seems to happen not in the field, right? Because the continuation is, and it was when they were in the field. So it sounds like they have a conversation before they're in the field. And then they're in the field. Okay? And then Cain arises against him and he kills him. So, and then of course we want to wonder, why does he kill him?
Rabbi, somebody has to turn off their sound because we're getting a lot of
background.
Yeah.
Squeaks. We're getting a lot of squeaks.
Second that.
Okay.
We're not getting the squeaks.
Yes, we are.
We are?
I hear it. It's not a squeak, it's a rumbling.
Now it's gone.
Now it's gone. Okay. So you're welcome to turn off, to unmute yourselves when you, God willing, have much to say. Okay, and anytime you can sort of say, because I can't actually see all of you because I'm looking at, we have a text in front of us. You can just say, Rabbi, I have a comment or a question. That's totally fine. Okay, so our broad questions are, just simply a little textualing. What did he say to him? And then of course this act of murder that happens. Well, what would you want to know about this?
Why he did it?
Why he did it?
There must have been jealousy involved.
Was that?
There must have been jealousy.
So you're already offering an answer, right? There's an act. The motivation's there. Yes. What else?
He knew that he was being murdered, that he was committing murder.
Hedda, you can put your screen back, your video on.
I'm still eating.
You're still eating. Okay. So what did you say, Hedda?
I just said, did he know that he was murdering him? Maybe he just was striking out at him and he did not know that he would kill him.
Did he know that whatever act he was doing, we're not told the manner through which the killing happens, but did he know that it would result in his death? Right? After all, they've never seen anybody die before.
Died before.
Right? They presumably they've seen an animal die before because they just had a sacrifice yesterday that was brought. And we still haven't figured out exactly, was it brought live on the altar and then the fire consumed it, or did they actually kill the animal? Not clear, but presumably they did so. But we'll just put it this way: he doesn't, death is not yet commonplace, and sometimes you wonder. So you can do things to somebody, and you don't imagine it's gonna result in death. all you need to do is watch children's cartoons, right? Children's cartoons, you can drop a piano from the 3rd floor onto somebody, and they'll be squished, and then they're going to hear accordion for a few seconds, and then they're walking around again. So I don't know. Maybe he had no clue that, whatever he would do, however violent it was, maybe he watched that fake championship, wrestling also, right? However violent it appears, and they're walking around till the end, after you do things that seemingly looks horrible. So I don't know, right? That's a possibility. What else? If you're the prosecutor, okay, or the attorney general, and you have to decide what charges you're going to bring against somebody. This issue came up, around the Breonna Taylor death, right? And what possible charges there were was apparently only intentional, right? Intentional murder, first-degree murder, but not manslaughter. Wasn't offered as a choice to the grand jury. That's supposedly what happened in that case, right? So those distinctions are real. Judge Tolshin, you're going to say something, Judge.
It would appear that the striking would have been an attempt to cause some upset to his brother, of a negative feeling, to annoy him, but not necessarily to kill him.
Okay, that's possible. But I was actually going to more to your juridical powers, and note that when we read this text, we do want to know not only did he think he was going to kill him, but did he intend to kill him? That really is significant in terms of what God will, how God should punish him. Okay, so those are our fair questions, and we can't tell too much when we just read the text. Wendy's ready to say something.
I don't think it's a Jewish concept that you punish somebody for doing something which he could not know what would happen if he did it.
Okay.
So we don't know if he was going to kill him, or the concept of killing was even known to him that it could happen.
Yes, we've already raised that. But even if he did know that you could kill and life could be taken from someone, was his intention here to actually cause him death, or was it to teach him a lesson? I don't know.
We don't know.
Okay. And was it premeditated or not? Right. Or was it a crime of passion in the moment, which also would be a factor here. So these are all undefined for us in the text. And with only a little bit of a hint on the statement, he says to him, he said something to him, and the next thing you know, and they were in the field. So let's take a look at some text together. Okay, everyone? We'll look at, I refer to it, build up to a murder. And we'll start here with Radak. All right, Rick, you want to read us the Radak?
I can't read it.
Sure. Apparently, Cain had no remorse, did not try to respond to God's promise and warning. Proof is that he proceeded to do something far worse than what he had been guilty of thus far by killing his brother.
Yeah, so
Very vague.
but I'm not always a fan of some of the translations I have found on this website. So as I'm looking at it, I'm trying to figure out, is that exactly what it says in the Hebrew? I'm not sure. It says here, he was not in any way remorseful because he thought he intended to do a great evil and he killed his brother. Okay? So according firstly to the Radak, this was a premeditated act. Shechashav la'asot ra'a gedola v'haraget achiv. Okay, let's go on. What did he say? Vayomer Cain.
He told his brother that the rebuke that God had rebuked him, and he said, "You are the cause of this to me," and other words like this.
Okay, so if the verse preceding has God talking to him, so the Radak elegantly says, when it says, and Cain said to Hevel without any information there, what did he say to him? He said to him what he had just heard from God. So again, we gave the principal's office version of it last week. Yeah, you leave the principal's office, and instead of taking to heart what the principal said, you go find the kid who got you in trouble in your mind, right? and you say, it's all your fault that I got yelled at by the principal. But it's obviously much deeper than that. As a result,
his anger had intensified. He did not attack Hevel physically at that time in front of his father, out of fear of his father. He kept his fury under control until the two of them were alone together in the field. This one to shepherd.
oops, sorry, yep.
And
This one's a shepherd, right? I'm sorry.
yeah, this one to shepherd. And Cain arose, his sheep. And the other to work his land. And then Cain began to fight with his brother out of the anger that he bore towards him from his jealousy, and arose and killed him.
So it's just churning inside of him. He holds it in because out of fear of his father. Fear is a tough word to translate. It all can mean one of two things when we use it, right? Either like trepidation, fear, or how else do we use the word fear?
Awe.
Awe, right? Out of awe and respect. Yira is actually respect. Out of respect for his father, he didn't attack his brother, there. But obviously, if he really respected his father, he wouldn't kill his brother elsewhere, right? So, okay, like at least Esav, out of respect for his father, decides that he's not going to do what?
Yaakov.
Il Yaakov.
Until
He runs away and
no,
So the
Died.
father dies.
until my father dies. That's respect, right? I won't call him. I will never cause my father anguish, right? In this case, my father's not going to have anguish if it happens, out in the field, unless he, of course, believes that it won't be anguish, that it will be easily associated back with him. So that's the Radak. He lays out pretty heavily. Let's just quickly look at these other commentaries here. Jerry, you want to read the Ibn Ezra?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
It seems that it's out of character that he would not get so angry in front of his father, because he didn't have any control over his emotions up until then. So all of a sudden he would step back and not want his father to see how angry he was.
No. It's not just about anger, right? He didn't want to kill his brother in front of his father.
But why would he all of a sudden have respect when he was so angry beforehand? Even with God, he was so angry.
That's just the quality of kavod that people have for their honor that people maintain for their parents. I don't know.
Oh.
I guess it's a fair question. Like, he doesn't seem to fear God so much. So, so suddenly he fears his father. That's a fair question. So let's pick this up here, the Ibn Ezra and then the Seforno. Jerry, can you see it?
Yes. The closest read to me is that Cain shared all of the words of rebuke that God had rebuked him.
Okay, similar vein. Go ahead, the Seforno.
And then he told him how upset he was and how he had become downcast on account of his brother.
So he laid it all out, how I'm really angry. And then?
And Cain arose without a prior fight, as the verse says, and he lay in wait, and then he arose against him.
So interestingly, I think he's interested in the fact that the Torah says, and it was when they were in the field, Vayibi yotam basadeh, vayakam Cain el hevel achiv, that he arose against him. So using this verse, he's understanding that kamalav is related to va'aravlo. You kind of set a trap and then you pounce, so that this still has premeditation in it, and it comes out of nowhere. He gets him out, unwittingly or feeling secure and safe out there, and then boom, just when he's least expecting it, he comes after him. That's how Seforno reads it. Okay, let's shift to the Ramban, and then we're going to see how the Midrash will take this. Okay, Wendy, how about you?
Where are you?
I just highlighted in the Ramban. B1. Can you see that?
No. And Cain arose without a prior fight. That was the last.
No,
that's the last.
Okay, now beneath
Spell
that,
there's nothing.
Oh, I have it.
You can't see beneath that?
No.
This is such a hard thing that everyone's screens end up showing different things here. Heather, you can see what I highlighted?
Yes, I do. And according to my thinking is that it links the phrase, and it was when they were in the field, he said to him, let's go out of the field.
No, let's go to the field.
Let's go
Go
out.
out to the field.
Out to the field.
Let's go out to the field. And he killed him there. See?
So he, instead of saying by Yomer, it's kind to Hevel, what the previous verse said, this is just a classic challenge in how you read a text. When you don't have the quote, so the quote is either what happened before, what was said before, or something which leads to the next line, and it was that they were in the field, so it must be what did he say to him?
Let's go to the field.
Hey, let's go out to the field, okay? So there was nothing of content, according to this, that he said to him, nothing of content in the statement. Okay, and it is likely that.
And it's likely that by killing him, he intended that, oh, I can't, wait a minute, I gotta pull it up. I intended that the world would be built up from him alone, for he thought that his father would have no other children. And
Hold on a second.
Wait a minute.
What does this mean?
So he wants to inherit everything.
He wants to be the basis of the world.
Yeah.
What kind of crazy person? I can be the basis of the world? And the answer is you can if
there's no other children.
If there are no other people on the planet. You have the parents who will grow older, and there used to be me and my brother. But if I can get rid of my brother,
It's all mine.
then it's all mine.
But Rabbi, if there's not been yet an experience of death, what would make him think that his parents would ever die? Maybe they just live forever because they exist.
Only what he knows God officially announced of them, that since they ate from the tree of knowledge, they will die.
Okay.
So there now is mortality introduced to the world, and I'll be the inheritor. The only one in my way is my brother. So this now like shifts away from a little bit of a jealousy about my little sacrifice and your little sacrifice to a much bigger perspective that he's creating for himself. This schnook, this kid, this brother of mine, I have big plans for the world, and I don't need a minute. Okay. Let's go a
Rabbi,
little further. Yeah, Jerry.
does this suggest that he may have thought that by killing him in the field, God would not know and his father would not know?
His father would not know is pretty clear. Is that God would not know, you got to figure, whoa, if God just sat him down for a conversation about things that happened when he put something on an altar, then he's got to presume that God's quite, able to see what's going on. Unless he misreads what God says. When God says, look, you have choice, and don't make bad choices. But in affirming that he has choices, he might then deduce that God will not have the power to interfere with the implications of choices, mistakenly, of course. They're all learning God right now also, right, Jerry? Not just learning about themselves.
Another question.
Go ahead.
It raises for me an interesting analogy between this incident and the incident of Abraham and Yitzchak, when Abraham is going to be sacrificing Yitzchak on the mount.
Yes.
The question then was, well, what was Yitzchak thinking? Why was he going up to the mount with Abraham? Here, if he's being invited into the field, or whoever is in.
Hold on, everybody froze on my side. My internet says, hold on.
Is the reason for going to the field in the first? You see where I'm going with that?
I was hoping I did, but
what does Abel think is going to happen to him, or not?
Either he's a sweet boy who, they might be already 40 years old, by the way, but either he just presumes my brother was angry. He'll get over it, and we're brothers after all. So let's go out to the field. Why should he not think that he can move on with his brother?
Or he could be suspicious.
Yeah, he might be too naive.
Okay.
So the other line he says here, let's finish that up. And he also worried. Head
Where
up.
are we? Wait a minute, I'm looking for you. Oh, and he also worried, no, wait a minute,
Okay.
that the primary building of the world not come through his brother, Abel, whose offering had been the one accepted.
So it was out of his jealousy for his brother. He didn't want his brother, who was clearly more liked by God, to have a place that and a foothold. So it's either he wants it all for himself, or at least he doesn't want his brother to have a place, because that will always have him be second. Okay. We're going to come back to this in a bit, but the first point he makes is that he says to him, let's go out to the field. One other version of it here is this is Rashi. We should read this Rashi. Debbie, can you see this?
Yeah. And Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. What did he say to him? He said, let us divide the world between us.
Do me a favor. You're reading the wrong one. Go up. Above that is Rashi.
Where?
He began an argument.
He began an argument, striving and contending with him to seek a pretext to kill him. There are midrashic explanations of these words, but this is the plain sense of the text.
So for Rashi, it was again, he made up anything he could. What he said is unimportant according to Rashi. It was just to find a pretext to get him to get him in a position where he could kill him for the reasons that we've already begun to conjecture. And then Rashi says, this is like very interesting in Rashi, because sometimes Rashi loves midrash. And sometimes he feels that my job here is to tell you what the simple reading of the text is, and I think that's that's a plain meaning of the text, even though there are midrashic explanations. So what are those midrashic explanations? So let's take a look first at the Tanhuma, and then further from there. Greg, can you see this? And Cain spoke unto Abel.
Sure can. And Cain spoke unto Abel his brother. What did he say to him? He said, let us divide the world between us, but since I am the eldest, I shall take twice as much.
All right,
Abel
so pause there. So what do you have going on here? He says his brother, let's divide the world. Premature?
I mean, perhaps.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought that there was a notion that they may be twins. Was that part of this lesson earlier on?
Yes, they are twins.
But he's still
There
older.
is a suggestion they are twins, but with every twin,
Cain is still older.
one of them is older, right? So that older twin, even if it's only by a few minutes, has what promise, at least as the practices and halacha eventually develop. Oldest child gets
Twice as much.
2 portions. Now, how would they know from such a thing unless they were instituting it? That's sort of an interesting move on the part of the midrash. So, but of course, what do you mean divide up the world? Who owns the world right now? God,
No.
true. But otherwise, his parents. And again, what's their relationship with their parents? I don't know. Are they just sort of working for their parents? I can't exactly tell. But he's already, in effect, imagining a time when their parents aren't there anymore, and he said, let's just plan this out now. We'll divide up the world, but I get 2/3 and you get 1/3 instead of half and half. Cain, if we do this, I'm sorry, Abel replied.
Abel replied, perhaps. If we do this, Cain continued, I want my share to include the place at which your sacrifice was accepted. Abel replied, that you cannot have. Thereupon they began to quarrel, as it is said, and it came to pass while they were in the field that Cain arose, and it says elsewhere, Zion shall be plowed as a field.
So you have a few presumptions you have to make here, folks. So this is interesting. His brother says, let's divide the world. I get 2/3, you get 1/3. And Hevel's response is Efshur, which is perhaps. And that is very interesting, right? What's he doing?
Stalling for time.
He's stalling. He's being cagey. I have to think about this, but he's not going to say no. Fine. He says, maybe. But then he says, I want the place where your sacrifice was accepted. What does that mean?
That's like the temple.
That's like the temple. Yeah.
I'll rule over you.
Firstly, the place that was special to you and God, I want for myself. Because obviously I have a place which was unspecial between me and God. I want your place. Well, can you imagine the chutzpah of that, right? And he says no. He says no. But then, so what's the continuation of this midrash?
I'm caught on the place because
Yeah,
the place doesn't seem to be, the principal factor in the
that is
acceptance
correct.
of the sacrifice. So
let me quote. I'm going to highlight the Hebrew phrases here, and it says, our verse says, "Vayihi b'hiyotam basadeh," and it was when they were in the field, and it says in Jeremiah and Yirmiyahu, Zion sadeh techarash, Zion will be a field plowed under. So here, just we should again appreciate how to understand midrash. Midrash is saying that Zion is sadeh. Yotam Basadeh is reading it when they were disputing about the sadeh, the field. Which field were they disputing? Zion.
God's the
Zion.
one that.
That's the answer.
Okay.
Well, it's Zion. I want Zion, and the assertion then is, where did this event happen? Where did Cain? I'm saying, where did Hevel bring his offering to God?
It's
Jerusalem.
Theo.
Right in Yerushalayim on the Temple Mount. That's what you get. Basically, what you have going on here, right? So that's hard for us to know when they're thrown out of Eden. We presume, where are they? Let me ask you, where do we presume all these events are happening?
Oh, they're out of Eden already?
They
Yeah.
are out of Eden.
Oh, I didn't realize.
So, like, our general presumption is that all these events happen in what part of the world?
Middle East.
Middle East.
And Israel.
Be more specific, where we imagine culture to begin.
Jerusalem.
The Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent.
Jerusalem.
So yeah, so I'm saying our mind says the Fertile Crescent. Admittedly, I will tell you that that some of the anthropologists contend that humanity actually began in Africa and not the Fertile Crescent. But otherwise, we kind of live with the Fertile Crescent as that presumption, and we just think that this Eden must be somewhere around there because the Torah describes the Euphrates River, the Tigris River. So like, yeah, it's pretty clear. So suddenly this midrash throws out this, no, you're wrong. This happens in Israel, in Yerushalayim, and Gan Eden is perhaps it sort of, it doesn't really get placed anywhere, and actually gets lifted out. And then what are you trying to place it on a map in a specific spot? That not, but where are they now in this midrashic read? They at least the events of yesterday happen in Yerushalayim on the Temple Mount.
That's what he says. Zion. It's Zion.
They do a rabbinic interpretive dance here, right? Sadeh, field, link the two together, just as that field refers to Zion. So this field also refers to Zion. Not that he murders him per se in Zion, but he murders him basadeh, around the issues of Zion. I wanted your place. Wow. So is this a pshat in the pasuk, or is the midrash talking about something else?
I think it's very far-fetched.
Stretch for me.
It's a stretch for you too, right? So do you think the midrash is insisting that this is the factual description of the events, or are they trying to say something else?
I think they're trying
to say something, but what?
I don't know. I think that's what they're trying to say. It seems so it seems like it gets more obvious after a while that they
Well,
must
could it,
be Zion and they must be on the Temple Mount. And
I don't know if
whereas
it feels so
maybe
obvious. I don't know if it
they're
feels obvious
not
in the
there.
context of the story as it emerges.
Maybe
But
they're not there, Rabbi, but maybe the connotation is that that's what the inheritance will be, the land of Israel.
people, right?
And
So
Cain won't.
let's go back. You're onto something, right? Let's go back to the very first Rashi in the Torah. On the Torah talks about why does the Torah start with these stories? Why doesn't the Torah start with mitzvos? Start with in the middle of Shemos, where you have mitzvos. Isn't the Torah a book of mitzvos? And the answer is no. The point here really is that God, the Torah wants to tell you about that God is the master of the world, and God gave Canaan to other nations, and then decided not to give it to them, and decided to give it to us, and so it basically establishes our rights to Eretz Yisrael and to Canaan, right? So if that's a certain mindset, so we're arguing. The assertion is that since the very first moments, the first feud, blood feud that existed was already a fight over the Temple Mount. That's what they want to say. Whatever it is that we Jews experience, and people are throwing us out of our land, and the Romans this, and whatever it's going to be, right? So you should know this is an ancient. This is the first act of violence was this, and this continues to our day. Don't think it's new. Don't think it's new. So again, is it the pshat? So I wonder if that's what Rashi's saying, right? Look, there are many midrashim here, and they are very important midrashim, but that's not the pshat. That's not the the meaning of the verse, but it's a second and third level meaning of the verse that we should not miss. So let's actually go further and see how another version of this midrash reads, because it gets more fascinating as we do it. Now that's the Tanchuma. Let's read the Midrash Rabbah. Okay. Rafi, can you see this? Are you still with us, Rafi?
Cain spoke to Abel.
Yeah. How about Dan Lehman? How about
Rafi
you?
had to unmute.
Abel.
Oh, okay. So go, Rafi, you're on.
If Dan Lehman wants it, I can certainly give it up. And Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field. What were they arguing about? They said, "Come, let's divide up the world." Can we just read this? What's shaded?
The Midrashim find themselves in different texts, and I want you to catch the variation of this. Okay.
Okay. One will take the land, and one will take the movable property. That's
Got
a new
that?
one.
Real estate and the rest of the rest of possessions. That's how we'll divide it. Not Western world, Eastern world. No. You get all the land, I get all the movables, or the other way around. This one said,
"The ground you are standing on is mine." The other one said, "What you are wearing is mine." This one said, "Take it off." The other one said, "Fly." Because of this, Cain rose against his brother Abel and killed him.
No, wait a minute, and fly.
So because you get off my land, and I said, how am I got to stand? So it says, no, you don't, just jump, right? So this is an absurd version of things. So the version we had before was the demand that I get 2/3, you get 1/3, and you give me Eretz Yisrael, right? Or Yerushalayim. Here it's about let's divide it up, but then there's no clean way to say let's divide it. How are you going to divide it? Just think how hard it is. Anybody's been involved in some Yerusha problems with siblings when things weren't laid out so clearly, right? And so you want to figure out what the fair way to divide things is, and it's not so simple. So now we have an absurd version of it. You get the land, I get the movables all the way around, and presumably the one who was the farmer gets the land, and the one who was the shepherd gets the movables. But it doesn't work that way. It can't work. Let's go on. Rafi, continue. Rabbi Yeshua of Sachnin.
Rabbi Yeshua of Sachnin said, in the name of Rav Levi, they both took one land and the movable. They both took the land and the movable property.
Divides different.
What were they arguing about?
Okay.
One said, the Holy Temple will be built in my boundary. The other said, the Holy Temple will be built in my boundary. As it says, when they were in the field. And the field only refers to the Holy Temple. This is what it says. Zion shall be plowed as a field. Because of this, Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him.
So it sounds similar, but it's actually a little different. Instead of saying, I want where your sacrifice was accepted yesterday, it's rather saying in the future, I want to have the holy temple built in my place. And so we know that Sadeh might be referred to a holy place. Not clear he means that they're fighting over Yerushalayim as much as fighting over the notion of owning the holy temple, which will be the same thing. Let's go. Dan, you want to read this last one? Yehuda Barami? You're on mute. Dan, you are muted. There you go.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yehuda Bar Ami said they were arguing about the first Eve. Rabbi Ibdo said the first Eve returned to the dust. Then what were they arguing about? Rav Huna said an extra twin sister was born with Abel. This one said, I will take her because I am the firstborn. The other one said, I will take her because she was born with me. Because of this, Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him.
Okay, so wait. What are we describing here? What does this midrash actually have us, force us to not ignore anymore when we read the Torah?
Incest.
Well, a logistical problem. The logistical problem is we're going to read a story in a little bit that so when Hevel is killed and Cain gets married. Okay, Cain gets married, and we have to solve the problem of
who's he going to marry?
Who's he marry? Who is this woman he married? Right? How does he marry a woman? So where does she come from?
She was born at the same time.
Their argument is that they were born with twin girls, twin sisters.
Triplets.
One of them was born with a twin sister. Oh. But so they're just struggling to figure out. We got to introduce the birth of a woman here for any of the story to happen. And yes, you're right; it will be incestuous. But that's the smallest problem right now. We just need a woman to be on the planet. So the first version says, who were they fighting over?
Eve.
Eve.
But Eve was the mother.
Yes, that troubles you, right?
Well, she can't be the sister who's a twin if she's.
No, she won't be the twin. But the first version basically argues that there is no twin, and they're fighting over who will get to sleep with mom. Because we have to be able to procreate or whatever, and they come to blows, and in the end, fratricide over the incest with mom.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Really?
Are we presuming that at this point there were no other people in the world?
Yes, we are presuming that.
Okay.
Because these are the first two people born. So we have to then, so either there is not really nobody else, in which case that the first reading goes, and they say, no, she's dead already. Interesting, right? She'd already turned to dust, in which case, now they say they're fighting over the sister. They're fighting over the sister.
No. Then he goes to the cities.
What, Hedda?
No, because then later on he goes to the cities and they're people. So I always said,
but that might be descendants. We also have to introduce all these, these very interesting, other versions of Lilith stuff. But we'll put that aside, folks. So let's pull away from the details here for the moment. What does you have a midrash which is trying to imagine what they're fighting about, and they offer three suggestions what they're fighting about. What are they? Property and possessions. Indeed, territory, property, possessions,
and women.
God and religion, and sex and dominance. Over and women. So this is actually something I haven't looked at it for a long time, but I just remember this is one of the earliest things I had learned from the Chama Leibovitz in her series. If any of you had a chance to ever read her series, what the midrash is getting at is to read this story which we started off reading as the petty feuding around God rejecting my sacrifice over yours and jealousy, which and it could be then a story about simply how deep a disturbed jealousy can grow in someone, to a much more basic discussion about what
Sex.
brings human beings to fight to the death with one another. And it's these things: territory, wars. Right? What are wars fought over? Over territory, over religion, and sometimes over a woman. Right? Europe.
Helen of Troy.
Right, so you got all that. Right, Europe is fascinating that way, and of course, every queen was a cousin to the other king. Right, because that's the bizarre nature of European history. All the Germans and the French and the British, they're all the Habsburgs and whatever. So but this is the core
All the children
what
have
people fight about: politics, territory, possessions, and women. That's what we got. And religion.
That the
right?
women, it's incredible that the women knew they were second class even before they had women.
Okay. I want to look at one more piece of the midrash, and then we're going to call it quits for tonight, everyone. But I think it's like this becomes a core discussion about a reflection, right? Let's look at this last thing.
When Hevel took his sheep.
So this is now the Tanchuma as it continues.
Okay.
Okay.
When Hevel took his sheep.
Jerry, you want to read this? Have you read for us already?
And
okay.
There are those.
You're muted, Jerry. Jerry, you have to unmute.
I can't. And there are those.
Jerry's looking for the mute button. Bottom left, I think.
No, it depends.
Mine is on the top.
Okay, this is an example of complete dependency on one's beloved wife. I'll try this. I can unmute you. I'm trying here. I'm sorry, Jerry.
and there are those.
All right, we're gonna have to let Jerry not be the reader, but follow along next time. Don't let your wife leave you. Okay, Mimi, you want to read for us?
He's having trouble too.
All right, I'm reading. And there are those who say that Cain said to Hevel, "Let us divide the world." Hevel responded, "Yes." Hevel took his sheep and Cain the land, and they were arguing. They agreed between them that neither would have any claims against the others. Beautiful. When Hevel took his sheep, he began to shepherd them, and Cain chased after him from hill to valley and valley to hill until they were wrestling on one another because like it's not working, this division that we have. And Hevel, look at this, and Hevel overpowered Cain. Hevel overpowered Cain, who fell beneath him. And when Cain saw this, he began to cry out, "My brother, don't harm me. Don't do harm to me." And Hevel felt compassion for him and released him. And Cain rose up and killed him, as it says, and Cain got up, implying that he had fallen. Vayakam, instead of reading it as to lay in wait for someone, Jerry, I see you unmuted yourself. To lay in wait and then to jump up at them. This version is that he was down and he got up. So what's the gist of this? What is it saying?
Well, he had a closer fight than we presume.
Well, here
More.
It's almost like we're blaming the victim.
Hevel, God bless him, is merciful to his brother who begs him for mercy, right? Don't hurt me, he said. Don't do me harm. And as soon as he lets him go, that's when he gets up and kills him, which is now, on top of everything else, an even uglier version of this man, right? Who took advantage of this beautiful quality that we hope people have of human compassion, and then turns around and kills the compassionate one. Maybe then, if that's the case, of course, the lesson is Don't be
Guy
compassionate.
finished last.
Oh,
Or the rabbinic teaching though that says whoever is merciful on the wicked, the wicked will destroy the merciful, and that's just an interesting challenge. But how do you know who you're dealing with? But there you go. We're going to stop here, and next week we're going to conclude our study. Okay, with the aftermath, what God says to him, and the punishment that is given to Cain. All right, everyone.
I don't know how to turn this thing off.
Well, the good news is I can turn you all off, so I'm going to do that, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Very good.
Be well. Be well.
And if you haven't voted, get out and vote tomorrow.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Bye-bye.
we both